So, high tension in Osun State for the People's Democratic Party, facing the prospect of losing Government House after the wave of excitement generated by the victory in July of Governor Ademola Adeleke. The former governor, Boyega Oyetola, had petitioned the election tribunal in August, challenging Mr. Adeleke's victory as a false flag and contending that there was over-voting in 749 polling units. After ostensibly scrutinizing the evidence, 2 out of the 3-member panel concluded that Mr. Oyetola had been able to prove that there was indeed over-voting in some polling units. Governor Adeleke has appealed against the ruling, calling it a miscarriage of justice and an unfair interpretation against the will of the majority of voters. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the policy strategist, Arise News analyst, and founder and executive director of Agora Policy, Waziri Adio, who is from Osun State. Waziri, thank you very much indeed for coming in. And you understand this a lot better than a lot of people do, even though everyone's struggling to get their head around it. Tell us more about the issue that was before the tribunal and how it arrived at this decision.
Okay, thank you so much. Anytime there's an election, there will be a winner, declared winner, and a loser, right? And the process allows whoever loses, if they are not satisfied, to seek redress. So former Governor Oyetola went to court to appeal on two grounds. One is that the incumbent governor was not qualified to contest for that position. The second was that the election was not conducted in compliance with some provisions of the Electoral Act 2022, especially regarding the use of beavers and 744 polling units. They started with 749, then they reduced it to 744 polling units. So as you said, it was a split decision, 2 against 1. So the majority ruling was that they found in favor of Oyetola, not on the first one. They said, the man was qualified to contest, for the election. But on the second one, that the result was not in compliance. The election was not done in compliance with the provisions of the Electoral Act in 744 polling units. So what they did was that they looked at the entire votes at stake in those polling units, which is 181,000, and they cancelled it. So on the basis of that, they said, okay, out of the total votes in those polling units, 60,000 went to APC. So they deducted it from APC's previous votes. 121,000 went to PDP. So they deducted that. So on the basis of that, they arrived at the latest, the duly cast votes for the election. So on the basis of that, they said Oyetola is the winner. So is also expected, Governor Adeleke is going to appeal, and unlike before, the appeal will not just stop at the Court of Appeal, but it can also go all the way to the Supreme Court. So it's interesting days ahead. But it also throws into the fore the role of beavers and also the 2022 Electoral Act, which, as you know, was passed and signed very early last year, and it's also something that might be at issue in the election that we're going to do next month.
That's a very good point, because I was going to ask you that if in fact there was this over-voting, which they was part of the reason that was given, how could that have been possible, or whatever happened in those polling booths in this technological era, when we are assured over and over by INEC that such things can no longer happen?
Well, I think we should put whatever, because people hear this in different ways. I think anybody that says that the human element will be totally removed from our electoral system, that person is living in another planet. You can introduce technology, and technology would do well in reducing the scope for mischief, but will not totally eliminate it. And that is also the reason why there's room for redress, right? Otherwise, if technology will solve all the problems, you just say, okay, take the results that way and just move on with it, right? So, and sometimes too, it's also a function of interpretation. There were 3 judges. 2 said we believed that this was not done in compliance with the relevant sections of the Electoral Act. The other judge said the case was not proven, that it was not done in compliance, because whoever alleges, has to prove. So going back to the specific of the case, and by the way, I've not read the judgment. The judgment was delivered today. I saw it. It's almost about 100 pages. So, but my sense of what is in the judgment is that they said there's a discrepancy between what is in the result sheets and what is in the BVAS machine.
Right.
Right. So on the basis of that, they felt that the result which was upheld was the one in the voters register, and that because of that there was overvoting, and what they did was to just take out the entire votes in the for all the parties involved.
That seems to make credible sense, the conclusion that they arrived at. But obviously there are lots of nuances that we're not necessarily aware of. And as you said, it's a very long sort of judgment, and there's all the evidence. But Governor Adeleke, as you said, is appealing the ruling. How do you rate his chances based on what you know so far?
Well, you see, the thing about going to courts is about evidence, right? And is about the case you're able to make, to substantiate your evidence. And if you look at the 2 judgments, it can go either way. On appeal, and even all the way to the Supreme Court, they can either uphold the decision of the majority, or favor the decision of the minority.
But if there is a clear discrepancy between what is in the beavers and what is in the sheets, I mean, then that is reasonably clear.
I'm just saying this is what I read.
Okay, right.
And this is what is also plain. If
you look at other things,
if you look at the minority judgment, the person said, right, the BVAS is a technological device, and they're supposed to be backed up by some, other infrastructure that could fail, right? And the Electoral Act and also the procedures put in place by the regulations put in place by INEC also still has a position for the electoral register.
Right.
That after you have accredited the person, you tick, so you cannot discountenance that, and that he believes that the petitioner did not prove their case, that there was actually overvoting. So you never know how to go when it goes on appeal,
right,
and when it goes to the Supreme Court.
Right.
So it's and sometimes some of these things are they are determined on technicalities, which it can be painful, but but that's the way the law is.
But briefly, how much of a blow is this for the PDP that it got to this point?
Well, it will have been good for it will have been good for them. For PDP to retain the state going to the election, because I don't see how the judicial process will be resolved before the February 25th election. So it will have been some kind of moral boost, for PDP to retain that. But Osun is a contested ground. Both parties are strong in Osun State. Since way back, since 2002, 2003, PDP has been very strong in that state. So it's they go back and forth, So it's but even when it's some kind of boost for APC, that this of course the governor is still there. He will still be there to the election.
Of course. Yeah.
But it's that psychological thing.
Yes, it is.
About
that I'm snapping at your heels, so you better watch out.
And the way it can also affect the other elections that we hold, not just the presidential, but also the National Assembly election that we hold in the states on. But it's don't also forget that the wife of the candidate of PDP is from Osun State. PDP has a strong foothold there. But there's also a sense that most likely the Southwest states will vote for the APC. But it's whatever it is, Osun is going to be, whoever wins is going to be close. When you look at the election, the gubernatorial election in 2018, it was won by 5,000 votes.
Right.
The one in 2022 was won by 28,000 votes. Even when it has been upturned, the margin is 22,000 votes.
So it's a very slim margin.
Yeah,
it's a tight race.
It's a contested ground.
Okay. Waziri, thank you very much indeed. Waziri Adio is the policy strategist, Arise News analyst, and founder and executive director of Agora Policy, and he is from Osun State. Thank you very much indeed.